Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is the Wesley Foundation at Tennessee State University, and we're fortunate to have with us to talk about the Wesley Foundation at Tennessee State University, the campus minister at Tennessee State University, the Reverend S. Shirley Renee Franklin. And of course, Reverend Franklin, let me welcome you to the show this morning.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here.
And to tell you how delighted we are to have you here to talk about the United Methodist Church, your background, your education, and some of the things that are also associated with the Wesley Foundation. But now, in order to do that, let's see if we can start off by having you to talk to us about some of the things that were important in your life, your background, your education that eventually landed you in that chair this morning. Let's do it from that perspective, and then we'll give you an opportunity to talk about the foundation and some of the other things that are important to you.
Okay, thank you. Well, I've grown up in the Methodist Church. I'm the daughter of a Methodist minister. My father was the Reverend James L. Moon and pastored all of my lifetime, and so I've had a rich history in the church. My mother was an organist, choir director, and all of that, so the music was a big part of it too. But I was the youngest of their 7 children at the time, so I've a lot of people in our family. But grew up mostly, though, in Nashville. Our family moved here in '65 when my father came to pastor C. Hubbard, United Methodist Church, and grew up in that church in a community that was very nurturing. Sunday school and all of those things that children do in the church, and really began to grow in my own personal walk with the Lord. And so I'm just really thankful for the history that I have growing up in a church and a religious experience. I served in the church a great deal throughout my young adult years, church school teacher, children's choir director, and I just did a lot of work in ministry in the church, and married. And my husband and I had 4 children. It was after having all 4 of those kids that I began to recognize God's call to ministry in my life. So that was really challenging to go to seminary and have 4 small children, and a wonderful husband, though, who's been so supportive all these years. So I've been to seminary. I've been ordained an elder in the United Methodist Church now since 1992, and have served in ministry in many ways. Formerly pastored Dixon Memorial United Methodist Church in North Nashville, and then in 1996 came to the Wesley Foundation campus ministry at Tennessee State University. So that's in a nutshell a bit of my history in ministry, in my life in ministry. Did you need to?
And so the Wesley Foundation that you're the campus minister, this is about what, your second or third responsibility in terms of your assignments?
Well, actually the second.
Second, okay.
Yes, Dixon Memorial was my very first appointment in full-time ministry, and I really had not served outside of the local church that I grew up in. So yes, Wesley Foundation is the second ministerial appointment that I've had. So it's a good ministry.
What about the Wesley Foundation? What is that organization about, and how extensive is it? Is it and I do know that it has components in other areas outside of Tennessee. Let's talk about it from that perspective.
Well, I started to wear my button today that says John Wesley was a campus minister, because really that's where we get the name Wesley Foundation from, to relate to campus ministries with the United Methodist history. Because John Wesley was not trying to start a new church or denomination. He was not even trying to break from the Church of England, but gathered with college students, his peers, for daily devotions and all of that, and it developed into a ministry. And so that's part of our roots in campus ministry, is that our church began on a college campus. But Wesley Foundations are generally campus ministries that are provided by the United Methodist Church on campuses across the country, all over, and in some other parts of the world. We are the representation of the church, so to speak, on campus. And in our conference in particular, persons do need to be ordained to serve as campus ministers. We provide ministries for students to help to really shape them and to keep them focused spiritually, to guide them and to understand God's call upon their lives, because we understand that God calls people not only to be pastors, but in many various vocations of ministry. And so I feel it really important for me to help students understand that the vocation of ministry that they're going into can be wide-ranging. It's how God specifically guides and directs their lives. So through Bible studies, through retreats and fellowship activities, some activities we do in conjunction with other campus ministries, we try to help students to stay centered in their walk with God and to become productive leaders in the church and society.
So in a real sense, when we talk about the Wesley Foundation at Tennessee State University, we are, in a sense, using only one example of what is probably going on across the nation at various colleges and universities. That there's probably a Wesley Foundation at some of the other institutions in the state of Tennessee and on across, all doing essentially the same thing that in terms of your programs and some of the outlooks and et cetera.
Pretty much so, because just like churches have personalities, certain campus ministries have a particular personality. We may do some of the same kinds of ministries, but depending on the campus and the students who are involved in the ministry, it may take a little bit of a different shape. But there are some things that are very common among most of our ministries. And two, Wesley foundations are usually found on state university campuses rather than private institutions, because most private institutions will have a chaplain, which is a little different dynamic than your Wesley Foundation, which is, it addresses the faculty and administration to some degree, but it's a lot more student-focused. Wesley Foundations tend to be.
So it's really a student-oriented kind of activity that you are involved in, more than dealing with faculty members or staffs of these institutions. Is that?
Well, certainly we want to maintain relationship, and there have been occasions since I've been at Tennessee State that the administration has called me and other campus ministers in dire crises. For example, when a particular employee died on the job, they called for us to come and assist with some nurture and support surrounding the other employees there. So there are times we do relate to the needs of the university as a whole, beyond students, but mostly we're student-focused.
Very good. You know, when we think about the Wesley Foundation, we think about not only student involvement, but the way that some of the most recent events have had an impact upon spirituality itself. Have you found that to be one of the cases in what you're doing now? Are there more students coming to you after September the 11th, for example, than there were before? Has it had any impact that you're able to discern at all?
Well, probably it's different on each campus, and students and individuals, and I think culturally too, people respond differently to different events like that. But at Tennessee State, there have been students who have had a need to talk about what happened and to understand, you know, what does our faith have to do with this? Where was God in this? And so we have had discussions surrounding that, but I do know of other campuses where the impact has been much greater than what I have experienced at Tennessee State with the students there. We did conduct some prayer times and opportunities for students to have, you know, to open up and to try to deal with that. But it probably has not been as difficult for many of the students I've related to as opposed to what I've learned from other campus ministers.
Now, you know, one of the most important aspects, I think, now has to do with the with financing higher education and et cetera. And I also understand that the Wesley Foundation is involved in terms of scholarships, and that you have some kind of program that will allow for financial assistance to students.
Well, we're connected. We're a ministry of the United Methodist Church, and therefore we are very connected to the General Church. And the General Church, the Office of Loans and Scholarships of the United Methodist Church does provide loans and scholarships for United Methodist students. And the campus ministers, such as I, represent the General Church as a loan representative. So I help to process applications for students, try to provide applications for loans and scholarships to students. And help to process those, give recommendations and all of that. But I don't necessarily, we don't give money out of the Wesley Foundation. It would be nice if we had money because there are other needs. And certainly, even though this is United Methodist sponsored, there are students who are not United Methodist who participate in the campus ministry. And I'd like to be able to help those students too.
Okay, and of course, Reverend Franklin, let me have this first commercial break, after which we'll come back and give you an opportunity to talk about some of the other programs you're involved in.